Grüß, willkommen in einem neuen video. Welcome to yet another exciting video, in this case episode 20 of my equipment series of videos. This video will be covering French World War II soft-skinned motor vehicles. What I'll be attempting to do in this video is to provide an overview of the soft-skinned motor vehicles used by the French Army in World War II, specifically, obviously, in 1940. This may be a rather strange topic to cover. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever imagine I would be doing a video on trucks of the French Army in 1940. But anyway, if you ever play figure gaming, which uses a scale of one element, or stand or base, which equals a company or battalion, we'll quickly find you need lots of trucks and cars. Those rules typically depict motorized troops by using a figure of their mount or motor vehicle. Lower scale rules typically dismount foot from their vehicles, often never needing the transport, so you never need to field them on the playing area, and higher scale are more abstract and, quite frankly, the vehicle is not relevant. Now, I want to make it very clear, I'm not going to attempt to provide a complete description of all the soft-skinned vehicles used, as this would make this video rather long. I'm only depicting the main vehicles used. If you want a description of all the vehicles, I would suggest you get a copy of Historical Military Vehicle Directory by Bart van der Veen. We need to first start with the staff cars. The Peugeot 402 is a large family car which was used as a staff car by the French Army during the war. The Luffly S15 was a family of all-terrain military vehicles from French manufacturer Luffly that shared the same six-wheel drive chassis. They were used by French forces during World War II. A personal carrier and reconnaissance vehicle based on the same chassis was designated as Luffly S15R, which is what I'm covering in this slide. It had a different, lighter rear cabin and a different transmission that allowed for higher road speeds. The Luffly V15R was the reconnaissance car or troop transport version of the general purpose 4x4 Luffly V15. Troops are able to debus quickly from this vehicle. The Luffly V15T was a French light four-wheel drive artillery tractor used during World War II. It was used to tow the 25mm SA anti-tank gun. A personal carrier and reconnaissance vehicle based on the same chassis was designated the V15R. This is typical with these particular vehicles. If you have a T at the end, that means it's a tractor or prime mover. If you have an R, then it's probably a troop transporter or reconnaissance vehicle. The Luffly S20TL, TL being short for Tracteur Chassis Long, was a 6x6 truck intended primarily to transport the dragoon regiments, or basically the motorized infantry that were in the armoured divisions. Luffly S20TL was a troop transport, but it was also capable of carrying a 25mm anti-tank gun portee, which means it's sitting on the back of the vehicle. Troops are able to debus quickly from this vehicle, which is why it generally was regarded as a suitable vehicle for the dragoons. The Lorraine 28 was a troop transport which was able to carry 10 men. Troops were able to debus reasonably quickly from this vehicle. The VDP Lorraine 28, or Voltaire der Dragon Port Lorraine 28, Mechanized Dragoon Vehicle Lorraine 28, is a six-wheel all-terrain troop transport developed by the Lorraine Company in the 1930s and used by the French Army during World War II. Mainly equipping mechanized cavalry units, most vehicles were captured or destroyed during the Battle of France. The Luffly Company was originally a manufacturer of heavy vehicles, trucks and buses during the 1920s and 30s. The company, of course, also looked after the juicy state contracts for the Army and worked on all-terrain vehicles. The Luffly chassis 6x6 was such a design, distinguished by an advanced transmission and innovative suspension system, as well as the two pairs of extra free roller wheels under the nose and between the main axles to overcome any obstacles. The design was soon spotted by the French military and tested by a military commission, and a range of these vehicles were accepted into military use. The W15R is a little bit of a mystery to me, as the R indicates it's a troop transporter rather than obviously a prime mover, which this vehicle was normally regarded as. Yet there is almost no reference on the internet on the W15R vehicle. I suspect this was a rather special, very low volume, the only source I have indicates only 200 were built, troop transport version of the W15. The Luffley S20 TL, which is a tractor, chassis long, was a 6x6 truck developed by French manufacturer Luffley in 1935. It was built to serve as a troop carrier for the Dragoon Regiment of Cavalry Light Mechanised Divisions, the DLM. The first 140 units were delivered to the DLM in 1937. The S20 could carry up to 10 riflemen and 2 light machine guns, a 10-man heavy machine gun crew, a 7-man 81mm mortar crew, a 7-man 60mm mortar crew, or an 8-man 25mm anti-tank gun crew. I have to assume it was also capable of towing the 25mm anti-tank gun as well. The Congress P19, which is a 1.5 metric ton half-track used to transport infantry, mortars and machine guns. 547 were manufactured and delivered to the French army before the war began. The Berliet VDCA was a general-purpose cargo lorry. 1,200 to 1,300 units of the Berliet VDCA were made with different superstructures from September 1939 to June 1940. Most likely, production was kept up for some time under German direction, and the Germans used this vehicle as well. The Berliet VDCA had a payload of 3 to 3.5 tons. As a troop transporter, this vehicle was most likely deployed to the motorised infantry divisions rather than any of the mechanised or armoured divisions. The Citroën Type 23 or U23 was a general-purpose lorry, also classed as a light truck by the French Army. The U23 or Type 23 was a light 2 metric ton truck introduced by Citroën in 1935. Unknown numbers were delivered to the French Army. The Citroën Type 45 or U45 model 1940 was a general-purpose large lorry, either 5 to 6 or 5 to 4 metric tons, which was also used by the Germans after the French capitulated. The Renault AHX, or in this case the AHS, was a general-purpose large lorry, 2.5 metric tons. Prototypes of the first AHX, and the many-version truck, the AHS2, was unveiled in 1939. It was aimed at replacing the similar AGC truck, which had a maximum payload of only 1.5 metric tons. The truck was designed to be used by the French military on the 2.5-ton carrying capacity group, but it was actually initially rejected, which is why only 10 of them were produced for the French army. The Panhard K155 was a general-purpose large lorry, 5 metric ton. The Panhard K55/172 had a similar driver's cab than the Panhard K101. The K155/172 had a payload of 5 metric tons. This was extensively used by the Germans after the French capitulation. I'm uncertain how many were used in French service, but I would imagine this would have been mainly used as a cargo lorry vehicle in the French army. The Renault AGK is a general-purpose very large lorry, 6 metric tons or greater. The forward-control Renault AGK, introduced at the end of 1937 and produced until 1940, replaced the 1935 Renault ABF, one of the very first forward control produced by the company. It had a payload of between 5 and 6.5 metric tons. For military use, it was delivered in various versions. The most produced had a 4,000mm wheelbase, or 4 metres, which was common in all versions, a 7,000mm or 7 metre length, and 2.3 metre width. The Luffley V10 was a family of military vehicles on a four-wheel drive chassis produced by the French firm Luffley. The Luffley V10M was a light artillery tractor that was used to tow the 25mm anti-tank gun. The Renault UE Chenillette was a fully tracked tractor used to tow trailers for supply purposes. It could also tow a light gun. In 1930, the Commissaire de Vincent decided to develop a light armoured vehicle able to tow and supply small cannons and mortars. In 1931, the Renault company was given the contract for production of his Renault UE, combined with the Renault UK trailer. In 1937, from a number of competitors, the Renault UE2 was chosen as an improved type for large-scale production. Of both types, concerning both types combined, over 5,000 were built, including licensed production in Romania, and they were part of the standard equipment of all French infantry divisions. Most Renault UE vehicles in French service were unarmed. Some of the Renault UE vehicles in French service were armed with a machine gun. I lack much information on this vehicle, but one source indicated there was 168 of these vehicles. However, the Germans also armed these vehicles with a machine gun, and that number may have been the German conversion. The German version had the machine gun mounted well above the vehicle. This French version had it mounted in the superstructure. The Citroën Cagresse P17 was a half-track artillery tractor produced by Citroën based on the system developed by Adolphe Cagresse. The vehicle was used by the French, Polish and Belgian armies and a few captured by the Wehrmacht later. The Cagresse P17 was a 0.75 metric ton half-track drive tractor, generally towing the 47mm anti-tank guns or the 75mm field guns, as you can see here. The Lafley V15T was a low-profile 4x4 version of the S15T. It was made by Hotchkiss and was used to tow the 25mm SA anti-tank gun or the 47mm Model 1931 anti-tank gun. The Lafley S15T was a 6x6 prime mover. The Lafley S15T was developed as a light artillery tractor and primarily for towing light field artillery, such as the modernised 75mm 1897 field gun. The Unic P107 1.5 metric ton half-track drive tractor was used to tow the 75mm and 105mm C field guns, as well as being able to transport troops. This was a rather impressive vehicle, and the French apparently had about 3,900 of them in their military. The Germans, when they captured these, used them extensively. The Lorraine 37L is a light-tracked armoured vehicle developed by the Lorraine Company during the interwar period or interbellum before the Second World War, to an April 1936 French Army requirement for a fully armoured munitions and fuel supply carrier to be used by tank units for front-line resupply. A prototype was built in 1937 and production started in 1939. In this period, 2 armoured personnel carriers and a tank destroyer project were also based on this chassis. Mainly equipping the larger mechanised units of the French infantry arm, this type was extensively deployed during the Battle of France in 1940. The vehicle could also tow a light anti-tank gun, but that was not its primary purpose. The Latil TAR H2 was a heavy 4x4 artillery tractor, rated as an 8 metric ton vehicle. An improved version was upgraded to 10 metric tons. It was used to tow field artillery such as the 105mm howitzer and probably larger weapons. The Lafley W15T was a low-profile version of the S15T. It was made by Hotchkiss and was used to tow the 47mm Model 1931 anti-tank gun and the 25mm anti-aircraft gun. The main reason why it was low profile was because it was mainly used to tow anti-tank guns, and anti-tank guns needed to be able to hide. The Samoa MG or MCG was a half-track artillery tractor and a recovery vehicle of the French forces during World War II. Manufactured by the Samoa Company, it was used to tow medium artillery pieces such as the 155 Model 1917 howitzer and the 105mm Model 1936 field gun, as well as their specific ammunition trailers. Of this main version, 347 were produced, 264 until the 1st of September 1939 and another 81 until the end of May 1940. There was also a recovery vehicle version fitted with a crane to recover broken down tanks, of which about 440 were produced. The lovely S25T was a highly mobile 6x6 French artillery tractor developed in 1939 for towing the 105mm Model 1936 field gun and carrying its crew and ammunition, characterized by advanced features such as unique front-mounted bumper wheel assemblies to prevent the vehicle from digging its nose into the ground, individual rear suspension and hub-reducing gearing. The S25T was one of many advanced French designs. After France's defeat in 1940, the majority of the 100-plus vehicles were captured by the German forces and pressed into service by the Wehrmacht. It was designed to tow heavy artillery, primarily the 105mm Model 1936 field gun, as well as other things. I found it very difficult to identify or get a picture of this vehicle for some strange reason, but considering only 108 were produced, that's probably the main reason. The lovely S35T was a general tractor, prime mover, 6-ton, metric ton, used to tow the 155mm gun. The lovely S35T emerged from a 1935 specification calling for a heavy 6x6 prime mover capable of towing all heavy artillery pieces in the French infantry, notably the ubiquitous 155mm GPF Model 1917 and 155mm Howitzer Model 1917. Lafley developed a ladder-type 6x6 vehicle with a 4-cylinder Otto petrol engine capable of 40 kilometres on all terrain thanks to its unditching small wheels, winch and spade. 225 were delivered from 1937 to 1940, and it was also used as a recovery vehicle, an armoured transport and an aircraft engine starter vehicle. While I'm making no attempt at convincing anyone this is an in-depth and historically accurate painting guide, it's a good starting place for anyone wishing to paint up their French World War II trucks. And so we come to a close with my episode 20 of my equipment series of vehicles, in this case covering French World War II soft-skinned motor vehicles. Alle guten Dingen kommen zu einem Ende.